Hello everybody, welcome to Red Tool House. On today's video, we're going to talk, since we've been doing a lot of fence, we're going to talk about fence chargers. What is the best style or best type of fence charger to have to keep pigs in your pasture? Let's go. What's an acorn? Boink. Hold it down. I'm trying to shoot some video here. Good night. Well, clearly that's not going to work, standing by them trying to talk. Well, in talking about styles of energizers, I'm really talking about three main categories. The first is AC, ones that you plug into the outlet. The other type of energizer would be DC, so you hook it up to a battery. And of course, the third would be solar, that it has a solar component to it and of course takes sunlight to power it. So which of those three is actually the best to have in your pasture? So from time to time I get asked that question, and my question I ask back is, what's the worst thing that could happen if your pigs would get out of the fence? In our situation, it's not a huge deal. I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere, so if pigs gets out of the pasture, then he's just hanging out inside the valley. If you have a farm and you're located near a nice residential area, or you got somebody that has a prize rose garden right beside your property line, then that's a big issue. That's where you really want to rely on a good energizer to keep your pigs where they need to be. Well, my next question is usually, what is the most important to you? Is cost, is your budget the number one thing restricting you? Is effectiveness or efficiency super critical? And effort, how much effort do you have to put into maintaining your energizer? And there's some key points to each of those. Now, when it comes to cost, as with most things, you pretty much get what you pay for. And I would say when it comes to choosing an energizer, the bigger the better in that situation. Your budget's really going to determine that, but when you look at the cost of those three types, usually the AC, or the standard plug-in, is the cheaper of the options, with the DC or dual purpose, dual option being second, and then the most expensive is solar. Now, when it comes to reliability or effectiveness, again, I think AC is the better choice, simply because you plug it in and it's kind of set and forget. As long as the power grid's working, then your energizer's working. With the 12-volt options, of course, you're good as long as your batteries that you're swapping out are charged. So as long as you've got a bank of batteries that you can swap out, then you're good to go there as well. With solar, of course, you're dependent upon the sun and the battery. If it's got a battery system, then the battery that goes with that. Those are usually much smaller battery packs. And you can see on a day like today, where there's not a lot of solar kicking here in West Virginia, not something that you're going to get a lot of energizing out of. And conversely, when it comes to effort, then that's where those 12-volt systems, where you have to swap the batteries back out, that takes a lot of effort. There's a lot of time. There's some man hours put into that, where you have to remember, okay, when's the time to swap the batteries? I got to swap the batteries out, bring another one in, charge it, all that kind of stuff. So those require a little more effort on the part. So you may be wondering, why am I bringing this up now? Well, I'm standing here in what is hopefully going to be our new boar pasture. Got 2 of the 3 sides put in. Got to run a line down this side of the watershed. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to energize this fence. It is over 200 yards back to the barn that direction. So that's my closest electricity. I would love to go with an AC powered energizer, because to me that's the most reliable. That's what I'm used to. That's what I've had. I'm very comfortable with using those styles. But to run an extension cord this far would not work. And putting the energizer down at the barn and running the hot lead all the way up here seems kind of wasteful. It just doesn't seem to make sense, and I've got a lot of maintenance issues that would go along with that. I've thought about solar, but as you can see, even right now in early spring, where there's not much foliage on the trees, that I'm getting a dappled sunlight coming through. So I don't know how well I could rely on solar to keep a charge, to keep the energizer going the way we need it to. To clear land, I'd have to cut out a lot of the trees to get enough of a clearing, I think, to have plenty of hours of sunlight directly on that panel throughout the day. And I'm trying not to clear out a ton of trees. Obviously, we're trying to do silvopasture, so I want to have strategically placed trees, or trees strategically left behind, that would have a canopy that would block my solar panel. So the system I'm leaning toward, of course, is the 12-volt system, or a dual purpose system. You can buy the energizers that, of course, can be plugged into 110 or have the leads for 12 volt. And I think that's probably going to be the best option here. When I've toured polyface farms multiple times, I've seen how Joel Salatin uses the 12-volt systems. Their pasture rotation they do for their cattle is so far away from any type of infrastructure that they can't get electricity there easily. So they use a 12-volt system. They have a large bank of batteries, though, that they're swapping out every several days. So there's a lot of effort involved in that, and you lose some efficiencies, and of course you've got expense tied up in it as well. But it's very, very reliable at that point. They just take a new battery out, hook it up to their energizer in that specific area, take the old one back and put it back on the charger. So what are the cons with that? Because there's definitely a lot of cons that come along with that system. So one of the obvious cons, of course, is cost. The 12-volt energizers by themselves, if you got a good one, like a 4.5 joule or something along those lines, you're looking at maybe $200, $300. So that's an expense there on its own. But then to have your batteries and the backups, you want these nice deep cycle marine style batteries, which they're $100 plus if you go with the good ones. And you want to have at least two, so that's another couple $100. And then, of course, in my situation, I've got a real crappy battery charger. I need to replace it. So as I'm taking a battery off the line, taking it back into the barn or back into the garage to be recharged, then I got to have a good charger to charge it. So a good one of those, it could be, you could spend tons of money on those, $100 to multiple $100. Depends on how much you want to put into it. But those are a lot of items that I need to buy, so that's a pretty substantial investment up front. The other con, of course, would be overwintering. What to do with these batteries? You can't really leave a battery out in sub-freezing temperatures on a regular basis. That's not good for the batteries. That won't work very well. And I know there's some other battery technology you may get away with, but if you look at a standard lead-acid battery, that's not going to fly very well. You look at Salatin and some of these other guys that do that, they're really not energizing their pastures in the wintertime because they bring their cattle into the barns and have them in these sacrificial areas close to their infrastructure that they don't need to have their pastures energized. Here with my boars, as I'm still trying to figure out, I don't know if I'll end up overwintering here. If I bring them in, then I have to watch to make sure how they interact with my gilts or sows at that point, because I may not want them to be breeding in the middle of winter. I don't know, those are some of the things I got to figure out. How do I keep this fence energized in the wintertime if I have boars on it? Well, one other option I could do, and I do have it at my disposal, is to energize the north pasture. That's what's laying on the ground here, because I haven't used it this season yet. But the north pasture covers everything you see here green, and it even goes all the way back, goes in front of the barn, all the way down past the chicken coop. So it's a large area, and right now it's not energized because I'm energizing all the south side. The back part of the north pasture actually just comes right real close to the boar pasture. It's just my road that separates. So I can make a jumper, either underground or do something up and over, to energize from there. So I would have to energize the entire north pasture to be able to energize the additional boar pasture. And I'm toying with that idea. That would allow me then to have an AC charger, another one right beside the one that I have, side by side. I could troubleshoot pretty easily. Ground rods be there, all those type of things that I could take advantage of, but it would require me to maintain all of this, and obviously I'd need a much more potent charger. I think my Patriot, it's a 4.5 joule, I think it would handle it. It's handling all the south pasture right now. I think it would work. It's just have to invest in another one of those. But that's another option. Well, I'm curious to see what you all think, what you guys have run into on your own operations. It's caused me to do a lot of research here recently and just trying to figure out what works. Comment below, give me some input, what you think, and we'll get some discussion going there. All right, everybody have a good day. Take care. People say pigs won't eat autumn olive.